Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What is going on, everybody? Hello and welcome to the Midweek Report for March 19, 2025. Yeah, that's right. We are here. The Boston Source is here. We got a lot of things here that's coming up for this particular weekend, but we also do have a special guest here for the Midweek Report as he represents Boxlab Promotions. He is a content director for the company. He has covered multiple events over the years through Boxlab Promotions, where fighters from that promotional company have been part of the cards, and he has been around many key figures in boxing and beyond. I'd like to introduce to you, brother Michael Leon, in the building. How's it going, Michael?
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to do this. Appreciate you having me.
Gotcha. No problem here. Thank you for being part of this midweek report. Reached out to you with reference to an upcoming fight card by Boxlab Promotions coming up on April 18th at the Caribbean Royal Resort in Orlando. I know that, Boxlab Promotions has had a number of fight cards there at the Caribbean Royal Resort, but we have this one coming up here, April 18th. Talk about this one here coming up with a few fighters that are featured on this particular card.
Yeah, so this is going to be a fun card. We just had, obviously, for people that maybe watched the Matchroom event that happened this past week with Emma Williams and Patrice Voney, we had two guys fighting in the undercard there with Jermaine Ortiz getting the W and Carlos De Leon, the Puerto Rican phenom. But our April 18th event is Boxlab Promotions in association with Undisputed. It's Night of Champions. We've got some top heavyweights in action, Gurgen Hovhannisyan, the return of Dainier Pero, an undefeated heavyweight who's ranked number 4 right now in the WBA rankings. We've got a couple title fights between Kevin Haler Brown. He's going to be taking on a great fighter, a 14-1 guy in Asturi Soweto, for a WBA Continental North American title. We've got undefeated Henry Cedeño out of the super lightweight division. He's going to be taking on Idalberto Umara, who's actually fought before at the hotel and had a knockout of the year candidate choice back in 2022. If anybody ever saw that knockout on CBS Sports against Encarnacion, I highly recommend you go Google that. So there's going to be some fireworks. There's a lot of good fighters on the card. There's some good local fighters on the card as well that have fought in some MVP shows like Antravius Ingram, a superstar out of Kissimmee, Florida. So he's undefeated, a prospect. We do this in association with Undisputed Promotions, and it's all going down at the Caribbean Royale. You can watch it, stream it live Friday, April 18th on DAZN if you live in the Orlando, Tampa, wherever, Central Florida area. If you live in Miami like me, you want to drive up a couple of hours, get tickets at Ticketmaster.com.
Yeah, you could, go up the Florida Turnpike, even though the Turnpike, it'd be costing a lot of money going to Turnpike.
That's right.
On that one. But you could go on either, I-4, like you said, Orlando, Tampa area. You could drive on I-4, pretty much make it there to the Caribbean Royal Resort for that fight card. Now, you were talking about, there with the main event being Kevin Brown versus Asturi Cedeño. That will be for the WBA Continental North America's title. That is a key bout for Brown there to climb up the rankings and have some interesting fights in the near future. Now with Brown, he's pretty much had all of his fights there at that particular venue. What has been the reception for him at that venue as far as building the crowd and building the following there?
Yeah, that's a good question because, a lot of these guys have fought at the Carib at least more than 4, 5, 6 times. And this is kind of the way you build up fighters, right? You build up their resume and profile. But with Kevin Brown, it's been actually really good opponents his last couple fights. So he just fought John Bauza in his last fight, September 6th, the headline fight again at Most Valuable Prospects. I believe it was 9 back in September that we do in association with Jake Paul's MVP. And, John Bauza only has one other loss besides Kevin Brown, and that's Richardson Hitchens. So he fought a really good opponent. Kevin Brown has tested himself. He's with Salas Boxing Academy out there in Las Vegas. So he trains out in the Mecca of boxing in Las Vegas. We provide him a home here at the Caribbean Royale to come down and fight. And the reception's been really good. Obviously there's a lot of Puerto Ricans that live in Orlando. He's Cuban, but there's also a good contingent of Cubans that live in Florida generally, like myself, that go up to the Caribbean from Miami and drive up to see Kevin. So the reception has been good, but also the last couple of opponents for Kevin, he's actually shown more of his boxing style and determination, his ability to move, stick and move really well. He's got some good power. I highly encourage people go to our YouTube channel. You can watch the ringside camera of that entire fight between Brown and Bauza. It was a really good fight back on September 6th with Brown getting the decision. But he's ready for this fight, and I think he's really ready for this opportunity against Suedo, who's coming in, like I mentioned, 14-1, 14-2 fighter, who's a really good B-side and another good challenge for Kevin as he continues his ascension in the division. He's ranked number 10 in the WBA rankings right now.
Yeah, and even though you have him currently at 6-0, the thing is, like you were mentioning, with the amount of opponents or the level of opponents that he's had, that kind of like has prepared him to be there at that ranking there within the WBA. Like his pro debut was scheduled 8-rounder, and then the next fight after that it was 10 rounds, and he's been in the 10-round bouts ever since. So it's showing that he's like quickly rising up the rankings there around the 140-pound division. And that says a lot there as far as like his overall skill level, particularly here in the pro ranks.
Yeah, I mean, and you said all of it, because it's truly the way we feel about him as well here at the promotional company. Like, he started to challenge himself back in May 31st of last year. He fought actually somebody who's fighting on the undercard that we'll get into in a second, in Idalberto Umara, another Cuban guy that was a tough 13-3 gritty opponent at the time. And, like I mentioned, Umara had a knockout of the year candidate in 22. So after that fight, going to Bauza, now getting some time in between here to kind of rest his body. He was supposed to fight in a fight that unfortunately fell through later on outside of the United States. Now we're able to bring him back here and kind of face an opponent that, like I said, is going to come to fight. This is a guy who's known, at least in the island circles of boxing, and is a tough opponent. So I think Kevin's ready for this challenge. If he was here, he would say he's ready for this challenge. I'll be his voice for that. But I really like. Kevin has impressed me over these last couple fights last year in 24, coming into 25. He looks in shape. He looks the part. And, like I mentioned, he trains out in Las Vegas with Salas Boxing, and Ismael Salas and his team. They prepare him really well, and they train other fighters right now, some that are not only ranked in the top 10, but some that are already world champions across the different federations, whether it be WBC or IBF.
Right. Correct. Yeah. Because I think, they have Alberto Puello there over at Salas Boxing Academy there, who is currently the WBC champion at 140 pounds. So
that's right.
Definitely have a lot of action there over in Vegas, particularly in Salas Boxing Academy there for Kevin Brown on that part. And now moving forward, you have, as we mentioned there, Dainier Pero, and he's been one of the fighters to watch for in the heavyweight division. Now, I've spoken with his trainer, Bob Santos, multiple times, and he says that Dainier could be the future there in the division. He always says, hey, watch out for Dainier Pero, watch out for him. Now, I saw, his bout against Victor Vickhurst back in 2023, where he scored a stoppage victory there, and he has been rolling ever since that. What should fans expect from him on April 18th?
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting because Dainier, he's coming off a little bit of a layoff. He's had some challenges with some things that, with other promotional companies and things like that. And so this is going to be his first bout coming back. And Bob is absolutely right. And don't forget, he's got a younger brother in Dainier Pero, who has fought at the hotel, who's undefeated himself at 10-0, who's a problem in the division. And matching these guys up has been one of the toughest challenges, I think, anybody at Boxlab will tell you. Because, look, both of these guys were former Olympians for Kua. Like, they know how to box. And you mentioned it before. Bob Santos, I encourage people out there, go Google who Bob Santos is. This guy was 2022 Trainer of the Year. This guy has Mario Barrios. Like, he has big names under his wing, and he has taken both Pero brothers, and he's going to take them to next levels. Dainier was a 2024 Ring Magazine Prospect of the Year contender. I think he finished fourth in the voting, if I'm not mistaken. Now you got Dainier coming back, and I expect, look, there's going to be a little bit of ring rust, as anybody has, especially getting back into the ring after a long layoff. So it's only so much you can do with respect to sparring and training and working on stuff like that. But he looks in shape. I watched a workout video of him the other day. We spoke over the phone, like via Zoom StreamYard, like we're doing here. He's ready for this. He's itching. He's biting at the chomps. But with Bob Santos, I think that's the biggest key that you mentioned. It's having a trainer in the corner that knows how to deal with challenges, adversities, layoffs, and can prepare the boxer to get mentally right to fight this fight and continue the ascension, because this isn't the first stop. We keep our fighters busy here at Boxlab. We know how to push these guys and put them in the right situations. This is the perfect spot for Dainier. He knows that. We've got the team around him to support him. And most importantly, he's got one of the best trainers in the sport training him.
Yeah, and you mentioned the thing there with both of the brothers there, but particularly with Dainier Pero, it's very difficult to match these fighters up there that are Cuban heavyweights, as you said, they could box. It's not much different than Luis Ortiz back in the day,
That's right.
or it's up to a certain point here with Frank Sanchez that they aren't necessarily put in a position to have like key fights to climb up the division, like they want to there, so they're not as active. So the key thing is about getting them as active as possible, so that when they do get a call that could like position them for like an eliminator bout, or
Right.
as I said, like a Continental America title, like for a WBA or something with the WBO or WBC, that they're definitely ready for it instead of like coming off of a year layoff or like an 8-month layoff or something like that.
No, and it's true. Like the biggest thing that I've taken away from Lanier and Dainier has been their training regimen. I went out to Vegas a few months ago, and just watching the way Bob kind of trains these guys and the way he puts them through the tests, the hills that they're running, and then what what that's for conditioning, and then obviously what they do in the gym. I mean, you can follow Lanier and Dainier on social media. Both of these guys have trained with Deontay Wilder as well. Last year, Deontay went to the gym and trained with them. So and we posted it on our social media. So these guys have been around big names in the sport. They're in Vegas in one of the central hubs, let's call it worldwide, for boxing trainers, and the experience and the knowledge, they're soaking it up. What's going to be Lanier, and I think he's going to be very, feel out in the first couple rounds of this fight, but it's mainly because he's had a little bit of the layoff. Like you said, these Cuban heavyweights, they know how to box. Like if all you have to do is turn on the tape. These guys know how to box. They fought in the Olympics. It's translated to their pro careers. Both of them are undefeated, ranked in the top 10 of the WBA rankings. So I'm excited, and I think he's going to put on a show April 18th.
Yeah, that most definitely, most definitely, and with it being at the timing that it is, he'll be able to have a good performance, and then the WBA rankings will pretty much reflect on that. As usually the WBA has their new rankings at the end of the month, so you'll have the fight coming up April 18th, and then after that, by the end of April, you'll have the new rankings there. So you'll be able to see if you'll have Pero there at a new position within the WBA, and like I said, eventually get something where he could fight for like maybe a top 5 spot in the WBA rankings or something like that.
Yep, that's the hope, and that's what I know Lanier is working towards. And if he was here, he would tell you that he's working towards it. And I know Bob Santos is keeping both of these guys on the straight and narrow, and they're itching to fight. Now, I'm itching to see him and his return to the ring on April 18th. So get your tickets, Ticketmaster.com.
Gotcha. Yep, that's right. Boxlab Promotions has their Night of Champions coming up there on April 18th at the Caribbean Royale Resort in Orlando. We're going to get into Henry Cedeño there. That's going for WBA. I think it's the WBA Continental title. We have to, figure out which one specifically. Could be Latin America title or something like that. He'll be in that fight card against Edalberto Umar, who we were mentioning there. And this is it also in the super lightweight division. With Cedeño there having a record of 15-0 and also looking to make an impact there at the 140-pound division. Now, with the amount of change that has been going on in that particular division in the past 12 months, how does Henry Cedeño fit into the picture there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Look, Henry and La Bazooka Cedeño is a fantastic, in my opinion, fantastic fighter. Like this is a guy who has fought and challenged himself in Team Combat League. Him and his brother were part of the Philadelphia Smoke team. He's 15-0. His last couple fights have been at the Caribbean Royale, where he's fought a tough Georgian fighter in Gurgen on an MVP card. He's also fought Luis Ramos, a tough come forward Mexican. So he's had 2 different styles, more of brute force guys coming at him that can easily take his punches. And he has to learn how to box in both fights. It's the clinic that he has put on from a defensive perspective. It's been something that I've loved watching Henry over the last, it's 3 fights actually, because he fought Matt Conway. And if anybody knows anything about the Irish brawler, Matt Conway, a tough fighter out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he fought him back in May. Just a good exchange in the middle of the ring, because I think Henry has had to learn from all 3 different fights that he's had in the division that his style is actually boxing. And this is what sometimes analysts get mad at, right? Like it's Shakur Stevenson, he doesn't let his hands go. Like he's too defensive. Well, Henry lets his hands go, but also has the defense and the head movement. And I've been watching him across these 3 different opponents, and it's just he is a problem to deal with. He just needs somebody that's going to push him. And let me tell you something. Idabeto Umara is going to be that guy that's going to push him in the ring, because Umara is a guy, and again, go watch that fight, Encarnacion versus Umara from 2022. But he also fought Kevin Brown, like I mentioned, in a highly contested split decision bout that happened back on May 31st. He has fought some tough opponents as well. He's a tough B-side type guy at 13-3. That has punching power. Like he can stun some people. He's got a great left uppercut. So I think for Henry, this is a really good fight for him to put him in position, maybe a regional title. Like I said, get him a shot down the line. And also he's got his brother, who is not on this card, but fought recently in another card for King's Promotion, a middleweight who's undefeated 11-0. Two guys that just push each other, they train with each other. It's a good family with some good trainers out there. So, and we co-promote with King's Promotion, Henry Cedeno. So I'm excited to see Henry's return to the Caribe Royale on April 18th. He's got a good Dominican fan base out in Orlando that comes and supports him for all his fights.
Yeah, now you mentioned there with those 3 fights, the past 3 fights that he had, it was basically 3 different styles. And that's key there in the development of one fighter's career, because he'll be able to make the proper adjustments regardless of what the fighter has coming into the bout there within those first three or 4 rounds or so. So you could make the adjustments, you could be in the pocket and slip and move and things like that. So we see here with Henry Cedeno having that upcoming bout against Idabeto Umara that hey, he's familiar with a lot of the styles that he's been able to fight through over these, past, I would say 12 to 16 months that gets him ready for this particular bout that's scheduled for 10 rounds.
I think everything that you just said, obviously I agree with, because it's one of those things where it's like, you can't just look at the box rec, right? You got to watch what these guys, who they're facing, like what's the style in the ring of the opponent. And, I'm ringside for these events, obviously as the content director for Boxlab. So I'm getting a bird's eye view of what each of these guys is doing and what they are not doing in each fight. In the Conway fight back in May last year, Cedeno was really catching Matt Conway, was getting him to stumble at certain times, right? Then in the Gogahia fight, it was the same thing. He was doubling and tripling up combinations, and Gogahia just wasn't putting on as much offense. He tried, not for a lack of trying. This kid that he just fought, Ramos, when he fought him on December 13th at Most Valuable Prospects 10 with the WBA convention happening over at the Caribe Royale, it was, I think, one of his better fights, but it also was a little bit lackluster. And what I mean by that is that Ramos was like a really strong, hard-nosed guy. Like anything that Cedeno was putting up, he just kept coming forward. And when he would swing and really try to get Cedeno showed great head movement and positioning. There's one part in the 5th round where I think Cedeno threw like 5-6 punches in a row. He didn't land one of them because of how much Henry was moving like this. And that's all drill work. That's something that's repetition, right? Like if anybody's watched that Ring Magazine Instagram post that we posted on Boxlab of Jermaine Ortiz's head movement and the drilling that he does for that, like these guys are mimicking those things that they're learning in training. Henry is a perfect example. In the 3 fights that he's fought, May, September, and December, he has really, each fight, taken that next step, in my opinion. I think Umara is another step. Try to get him a regional title here and then put him in position to see if he can compete for a world title shot at 140. We got another 140-pounder on our roster, a few 140-pounders on the roster. We just talked about Kevin Brown. So this is a division that we feel like we could really saturate over the next couple of years with some of these guys.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fights that could be made there within the 140-pound division there. Particularly at the top of the 140-pound division that I'll be talking about here a little bit later on. Just getting through the fighters here that are featured on this card coming up on April 18th at the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando, Florida. You have another heavyweight there on the card, and that's Gurgen Hovhannisyan, and he's scheduled to be fighting Dewan Calloway on the card. Now I've seen Gurgen Hovhannisyan there against Michael Polite Coffey back in 2022. And, after that, we had like a little bit of a break. Now he was able to get back in the ring last year, had a few fights last year, and, was able to do some good work against Luis Pascual and Patrick Mailata there before having this bout against Juan Calloway, which is, 4 months after, that previous bout that he had at the Caribe Royale. So as I mentioned, a lot of times it's great to be active and stay active in the ring, particularly with heavyweights, so that, you'll be able to sharpen your skills there to build yourself up once you start to get in the rankings. With Hovhannisyan here, this is going to be his 8th professional bout that's coming up against Dewan Calloway. So talk about Gurgen Hovhannisyan here in his bout that'll be happening on April 18th.
Listen, Big Goog is 6'7". I think he's like 275, 280. I read something. I might have been on Boxing Scene about, or maybe it was on Twitter, of how much weight is going to be in the ring for this fight. Is going to be around, because his opponent, I think, is about 312, if I'm not mistaken. And he just fought Patrick Mailata. You were mentioning the Mailata fight that happened December 13th. Mailata's a big boy. Go ahead.
Well. They say that they're having Dewan Calloway scheduled on this. Okay.
Right.
Well, now this is Dewan Calloway that just fought. Okay, he fought Thomas Carty over at the theater at Madison Square Garden, and he weighed in at 409.5 pounds. Okay. So it's gonna be a whole lot of big boys brawling for this particular bout.
Let me tell you something. So I want people right now, not to continue to promote Boxlab's YouTube channel, but our ringside camera guy captured the from the ringside on December 13th when he fought Mailata. There's like in the 4th round specifically, there's an exchange instance where you could feel the ring shaking, and the camera guy had to move back because he thought one of them was going to fall into the ropes or do something to break the ring. For people that watch WWE, it was kind of like that Mark Henry slam when they broke the ring. Like it's that much weight.
They're suplexing the Big Show or something. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, we could cross it over to WWE. But but the thing with Gurgen is, look, young guy, still relatively young. He's 7-0. We just talked about it with the Pero brothers. Gurgen is in his corner is Joe Goosen. And for people that watch PBC on Prime, you got the guy with the slick hair that does the color analyst voice. Yeah, that guy used to train Riddick Bowe. And that guy has trained others in this sport. And that guy is, if he's not in the Hall of Fame, he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he is. But like, it's Joe Goosen, right? So whenever somebody says Joe Goosen's training that person, you tend to take that person a lot serious. And Gurgen, over the last couple of fights, I'm glad that you said about the activity, because in May with the Pascal fight, he only got 2 rounds in, right? The Pascal's corner kind of threw in the towel to start the 3rd round. So it wasn't really too much work and activity. And then he didn't fight again until December. I would love to get Gurgen some more work. I'm glad that we can get him on this card here on April 18th, because like you said, keeping these guys active and in shape, for somebody like him that's 6'7", 275, 280, he's itching to get back in the ring. You know, he's under 25 years old. Like this is somebody that, like, you know, he wants to do this. And I think he's going to put on a show April 18th. I hope his opponent weighs way less than 409. I would hope that guy comes in a little bit less. But I think one of the key things he learned, Mailata came in at, I think, around 330. And, you know, Gurgen couldn't really move Mailata. So when Mailata would lean into him, he struggled to get off of the ropes. Where he had the advantage was reach. And that's where he used it to his advantage. He would double and triple up things, short uppercuts. When Mailata did reach in, Mailata left himself open to a lot of that. So it showed that Gurgen knew how to box. And that comes from Joe Goosen being in the corner and that team, you know, explaining to Gurgen, this is what you got to do when this guy's pressing you and leaning on you, because it's a sport after all, and the judges can see when you're scoring.
Yeah, and the thing is that, you know, with Hovhannisyan, he has this upcoming bout here with, you know, with Dewan Calloway. Yeah, he's going to be using a little bit of movement here and there, because I mean, I know you said that maybe he would come here under 400 pounds, but the last, you know, 3 or 4 fights, that's where he's been at, is around the 400-pound range. So you might expect the same thing here coming up on April 18th. Now, more here on this Boxlab Promotions card. You're going to have Christopher Diaz and Travis Ingram featured on this particular card. You said that, you know, this event there, you know, is also, promoted by Undisputed Promotions, and you said that there with Travis that he is part of that promotional banner as well. So tell us about those 2 fighters.
Yeah, so for anybody that watches, obviously in a different division, Christopher Diaz is somebody that I would think a lot of people know that name in the super featherweight division because he's fought Shakur Stevenson, he's fought Navarrete, he just fought Henry Lebron out on a matchroom card in Puerto Rico back in December, lost in a close decision there. A very good fighter. Henry Lebron is 20-0. So everybody that Christopher Diaz is 29-5. His 5 losses, his opponents, I think total have 5 losses, if that. I mean, he has fought some of the best in the division, and while he has lost, they always say, iron sharpens iron, right? So like him losing to those folks, he has had a huge advantage whenever he faces somebody of a different caliber because he has fought the premier fighters in the division. He's the pride of Puerto Rico. He trains out in Orlando, Florida. So he's going to be returning to the card, and his opponent is getting announced very, very soon, coming up soon. So you should see some news about that. So we're excited to have him back in the fold and fighting in the undercard of Night of Champions. And then I mentioned about Travius Ingram, and there's Carlos Lebron, too, is another fighter that's on Undisputed Promotions. We do a lot of work with them, an Orlando-based company there with some good fighters. And Travius Ingram, a guy who's, again, ascending in his division. I mean, this is a kid, I believe he's 8-0. And not only that, if you just go to Most Valuable Promotions' Instagram page, or you go to Travius's personal page, you'll see some knockouts that had Jake Paul in the building standing up, clapping for him because he's been featured on some of our Prospect Series cards. He is really one to watch. He's a good draw because he has the local support of the folks out in Kissimmee. And so he's going to be on that undercard along with Carlos Lebron and some other fighters. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But like I mentioned, a lot of these folks, you're going to know these names, or you should know these names of these fighters. Dainier Pero, like I mentioned, the top 5 heavyweight. Gurgen Hovhannisyan, somebody who's ascending in the heavyweight division. 2 title fights with Umar and Cedeno, and then Brown versus Suedo. And then obviously Christopher Diaz, like I mentioned, one of the top folks that has fought at the pinnacle division and some of the biggest names in the sport. And he's going to be featured on this card. So we're excited for both of those guys to be a part of it. We're excited overall for the April 18 fight.
Yeah, as we have, I think it's around like 10 fights there that's going to be part of this card. You're also going to have Roberto Raul Rivera Gomez on the card. As you mentioned there, Carlos Lebron, Jobek Colazo's scheduled to have a pro debut there on this particular part there for Boxlab Promotions. So it's definitely going to be a packed fight card there at the Caribbean Royale Resort. Therefore, those, like I said, in the Orlando area, pretty much around the I-4 corridor, as they say, or like you have there, driving up from Miami, or coming from north like Jacksonville, Tallahassee, or something like that. Fight fans will be able to come down to Orlando and enjoy the fights there coming up on April 18th.
Yeah, go get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com. If you can't join us, stream it live, obviously, on the Zone. But we would love to have you in attendance. Come say hello to me. Just look for me. I mean, there's not that many bald-headed Puerto Ricans with glasses out there. There's another one that works for Boxlab Promotions. I'm the other guy from that. But we'd love to have you at the Caribbean Royale, and I'm excited for this card, April 18th. So get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com or go to BoxLabPromotions.com to find out about the hotel. If you need a hotel reservation or if you want to get tickets, BoxLabPromotions.com or Ticketmaster.com.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, you've been there part of Boxlab Promotions for some time now. Talk about being part of the company and also working with Amari Piedra.
Yeah, so I mean, full disclosure, I'm related to Amari, but I should background this because I worked at HBO Sports for a better half of a decade. I was a fight producer for ESPN Deportes and Friday Night Fights. Amari entered into this venture, I want to say maybe 6-7 years ago with respect to boxing promotions. And then obviously over the last 4 to 5 years, they've had fights at the Caribbean Royale Hotel because Amari is the managing director at the hotel. And it's really about bringing live fights to the Central Florida area. Like you mentioned, the I-4 corridor, anybody that's in that Tampa, Orlando area wants to come out. And it's been great fights. I mean, we just saw the matchroom card that happened March 15th, about 2,800 people in attendance, a packed house, Edgar Berlanga fighting in that undercard, a really good pro debut of Amar Jones. So like it's been as we've worked with co-promoters and then as we do our single promotion events, it's been something that has been very well received in the area. And, I run obviously all the content that you see. You can follow us at Boxlab Promotions on Instagram, on TikTok. Go, subscribe to our YouTube channel. But everything you're seeing there is kind of my purview of years of working in this space. I ran content for the New York Knicks and the PGA Tour. So this is kind of like my bread and butter, and it's to make the fighters look good. But let me tell you something, it's been a really easy job because the fighters already look good. Like as we saw this past weekend with Jermaine Ortiz and Carlos De Leon both getting victories in the undercard of that Williams versus Volney match. So it's been fun. I've worked, for Boxlab over the last year and just bringing fights into the area. It's been really well received. And I just love first off, I have family that lives in Orlando, my mom, my cousins, a lot of them are boxing fans. A lot of people didn't know that this was available in Central Florida. Obviously, Florida puts on fights. Down here in Miami, I went to Teofimo and Lopez versus Claggart down here at the James L. Knight Center. So people have been to boxing events, and I saw Tito down here, Trinidad, fight in Miami years ago. But now they know a central location in Florida, and that's the Caribe Royale, where there's going to be fights once a month that are happening there, whether it be Matchroom Boxing, whether it be Most Valuable Promotions, or whether it be Boxlab Promotions. We're going to be putting on these events, and I can't thank Amari enough for the opportunity, but also to leverage the skill set that I have in creating content and being able to talk about the promotional company and being able to talk about the sweet science, something that I've loved and have covered for a better half of a decade plus.
Yeah, that's the key thing about the sport of boxing is, being able to put it out there for the public to, see what's going on and see what's going down. And that kind of, grows and expands the sport so that, you'll say, hey, you know what, check out this person right here. Look what they did, and once they are able to check that out, then they could see that the next time that a fighter has something scheduled, they'll say, hey, you know what, I remember this happening the last time that they were in the ring. Let's see if they could do that here again. So I'm going to see if I could, attend the next fight there for it. Yeah, and that's kind of like what you have there as far as like putting that there for the public, for the people to see on that front.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I've been doing. And like if anybody follow us on Instagram, I was mentioning before Boxlab Promotions, but like we do fight recap shows that air. So we have highlights that not only promote the fighters, but promote the exchanges in the ring with analysis. We've had Nonito Donaire do some analysis for us as well. Obviously, the multi-time world champion. We've had Karan Bhatia, who is a 4-time Emmy-nominated producer for HBO Sports, who comes on and does the recap shows with us. He's the blow-by-blow voice for our fights that air on the zone. So, we've gotten some big names that have come to the Caribbean and have done. I've been part of the production, and what we want to do is, especially with the content, look, people have different, just like fighters, their styles make fights. People have different styles, right? Some folks want expediency and they want to record it with a cell phone and throw it out there. We do a little things more from a showcase perspective. We want the fighters to shine, and then we want to build them up, whether it be media appearances, etc., and give people the opportunity to see them fight. Because there are some people, let's be honest, that maybe haven't seen these folks fight. They don't have the zone. They don't know much about them, but they do know that they are searching for boxing content, knockouts, highlights, best fights. Who's the next up-and-coming fighter in the division? There's chances that you're going to stumble upon one of our names across the divisions. It's my job to make sure that you stumble across one of our names. And I've got a great team and a staff that's been helping me put this all together. And Boxlab Promotions, like I said, first and foremost, does a great job with the venue. We've got a partnership, obviously, with the Caribe Royale. We put on the fights monthly. And, we're trying to escalate these guys and advance them in the sport, put them on big cards. Yoenis Tellez opened the Tank versus Roach card up at Barclays with a big win over Julian Williams. So, these guys are getting that opportunity. Antonio Vargas, we're waiting on that Japan title shot fight. So there's going to be some big opportunities. And hopefully now with Jermaine Ortiz, especially after this win against Yomar Alamo, will be maybe a rematch with Teofimo, maybe somebody else within the division that'll give him a shot. So we're excited about it. And first and foremost, showcase and spotlight the fighters. We've been doing a great job with that. So let me pat myself on the back. Like Snoop Dogg once said, right? I want to thank me for doing what I did. So
doing what I did, yeah. And like you said there with the Boxlab Promotions and promoting the fighters within that promotional company, it's like having a Boxlab Promotions show where you feature those fighters and say, with Jermaine Ortiz, for example, getting a unanimous decision win that he got over Yomar Alamo. there at the Caribbean Royale Resort. Like you have, highlights there of that particular fight and show, what he was able to do there. Like for me, I mean, they felt like he, kind of like stepped up his aggressiveness there after the first couple of rounds. And, Alamo didn't really have an answer for that. So it pretty much like was smooth sailing there for Jermaine Ortiz in order for him to get that decision win. And for that, what was it, the Continental America's super lightweight title. And, after that particular bout, he did, mention about potentially facing, Teofimo Lopez, but also, with him being in the WBA, you have a newly crowned world champion there in Gary Antoine Russell. So he also, mentioned Gary Antoine Russell as a potential opponent and seeing if they could, maneuver to have a fight there against Gary Antoine Russell here in the future. So, we had a very, very good performance there against Yomar Alamo in that bout at the Caribbean Royale Resort there. So, share your thoughts about, his performance there on that night.
Yeah, look, I'm really proud of Jermaine. Obviously, I'm biased, but I mean, I've gotten to know Jermaine now since we signed this promotional agreement with CES Boxing and his promoter Jimmy up there in Massachusetts. But look, I've always been a fan of Jermaine Ortiz from afar. I know people scored the Teofimo fight in different directions. They say he ran, some say he boxed. Look, whether or not you're on either side of the fence, you know that Jermaine Ortiz is talented. He's a technician for a reason, and I think that carried over into this fight. And by the way, and I know you were there, James, at the fight too, because I saw you there. But like, he really was a lot more aggressive, and especially at that 10 count, 10 seconds left remaining in the round. And it's one of the things that, and this is back to the content side of this. I interviewed him Thursday for our previews of the fights for the weekend, and we posted this on Instagram and YouTube. And I asked him, because he's been mentioning the word dominate. He's been mentioning dominating the entire time. And I said, well, what does it look like for you Saturday night to actually be dominant? And he said, look, I don't want it to get to a decision, but I want it so that the corners are like almost on the verge of having to step in and call this because of how dominant I'm looking. And one of the big things and I was sitting in his corner, so I'm listening to his corner as his trainer was giving instructions in Spanish, because obviously Jermaine speaks Spanish. And I'm listening to what he's telling him. And you saw Jermaine go out there and actually execute it. And what's funny is that, Yomar caught him a couple of times, and there was a little bit of swelling over Jermaine's right eye, but he didn't let that affect him. He didn't want to let any rounds. He didn't want to lose any rounds or have any swing rounds, like he told me. And I think in those finals 10 seconds, and you can watch it over our YouTube channel, some of the shorts that have been uploaded, he really came out aggressive. He was doubling up. And there's one good instance where he had Alamo against the ropes, gave him 2 quick uppercuts, tried to get a third off as Alamo backed up, and then he caught him with a left hook. He knows how to box. Like there's no doubt about it in anybody's mind that Jermaine Ortiz is one of the top 10 to 15 folks in that division. And again, he has 2 losses, Lopez, Lomachenko. This is back to like Christopher Diaz. Christopher Diaz has 5 losses to 5 guys that are really good in the division. And I think the one that has the worst record is 22-2. And so like our guys are fighting the best fighters out there. We want to make the best fights for Jermaine. I thought it was a big step. Alamo was no pushover. Look, Alamo fought Hitchens. He fought Moran. He's fought other guys in the division, Liam Paro. Like, again, so that was a guy who was 22-3 with 3 losses to 3 top people in the division. I think Jermaine really tested himself with this fight. He's put himself perfectly in a position at a world title shot.
Yeah, nearly scored a shutout decision victory there against Yomar Alamo. So that, definitely will put him up there in the rankings in the WBA. So we got to see how they have a position here when these new rankings come out at the end of March there. And then you also mentioned Carlos Castro. Yep. That was part of this card here against Carl Rogers, and he was able to execute very well in a couple of rounds and was able to end it with a technical knockout victory there. So now he is at 4-0 here for his professional career, and he had a good following in the Caribbean Royale Resort in Orlando there as well. So he's off to a very good start here. Now, having his first 4 wins in his professional career, they're kind of like floating around in the super featherweight division here, starting off his career.
Yeah, Carlos De Leon Castro is going to be a name to watch. And again, if you follow the amateur circuits, you're going to know who he is already because he was 91-4 in amateurs, and he's a multi-time Puerto Rican amateur champion. I mean, this is a guy from San Juan, Puerto Rico. Funny enough, you want to laugh, James? My dad's real name is Carlos De Leon, which is my actual last name is De Leon. My dad dropped the day when we moved here, so we're trying to find out if we're actually related. That's a side note, but I know I can't box like him. I'll tell you that much. And let me tell you something. He's trained by his father, Carlos De Leon Sr. And like I mentioned, huge Puerto Rican contingent in Orlando, and I was asking him about fan support as I was translating for him in a recent interview I did with him. And, he can't do it without the fan support. He fought 3 fights last year, his pro debut in June at Carib. Then we had him 2 fights in Puerto Rico. Obviously, he fought on an MVP, Most Valuable Prospects card. Fought a good kid in Lavelle Willington. That was a really good 4-round super clash. A lot of huge viral moments in that fight. In December, he came back on a Matchroom card and fought. Eddie Hearn and the Matchroom team have been fantastic in terms of understanding that this is going to be one to watch in that division, especially because of what he did in amateurs, the background that he has. Look, I mean, the kid's about to turn 19. Like this is a young kid. Like he's not, and so we're really excited about him. And not only that, the training that he's getting with his father right now. There's been some warm-up videos that you follow him on social media of the way he trains. He just looks physically imposing for that division. The guy that he was fighting in Carl Rogers, a lot smaller with some pretty good reach, came out in the first round, almost like tired himself out because of how much he tried to swing. And De Leon was just sitting there in rounds 2 and 3 and really worked the body, great head combinations. And like, he was really putting on a boxing clinic, especially in round 3 to get him out of there. So to watch in the division. We expect a very busy 2025 for Carlos De Leon Castro.
Yeah, like you said there, with the amateur background that he has, he built up a great record there in the amateurs before starting his professional career. And like I said, with him having that Puerto Rican background, he's definitely going to have a great following there. Particularly if he has a number of fights in Orlando there at that particular venue. So we will see like what's going to be here in the near future for Carlos Leon Castro, and how he's going to build himself up there, particularly in that 130-pound division. That's definitely going to be something for people to watch out for. Now, you talked about your history being involved in the sport, so it's been a long involvement there in boxing. So, want to ask you here, what is an event that stands out to you as something like a fight card that was solid from start to finish?
Ooh, fight card solid from start to finish. I mean, man, well, I got to tell you something. I'm a little bit biased because of the recency.
Okay.
That Russell versus Rayo fight, and then you had obviously Tank and Roach. Obviously, we had Ioannis Tellis, and like, there were some good fights on that card. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a lot of events, a lot of duds. Yeah, I went to Cotto Jennings at Yankee Stadium as part of HBO. That was a little bit of a dud, but again, Cotto fighting out there, in the Bronx. I've been to a lot of Cotto fights, actually, funny enough. But I saw there's been some really great main events. Andre Berto, Victor Ortiz. I was at up in Connecticut at Mohegan Sun. Just been around the sport so much that I remember more fights than I do events. I've gotten to see Lomachenko at the Garden in person. I've gotten to see, like I mentioned, Cotto before and Felix Trinidad. So just getting to be a part of some good fights, or at least being able to attend and watch some good fights. But I got to tell you, the Tank card that happened last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it is, I tell you what, that was actually a really, if you just watched from the prelims, towards the end of the prelims going into the main event card, and again, we had Ioannis Tellis fighting on the other card. Like, there was some really, really, really good fights that were on this card. And again, people taking next steps in the sport, like Tellis. Obviously, Lamont Roach put himself on the map, even though if you're a boxing, a diehard like you and I are, you already knew who Lamont Roach was. You knew that he moved the division up, and people that in mainstream media maybe didn't know who he was, or that he could box, or that he had a background and knowing Tank and knowing that they could counter his style. But I thought that was a really, really good, well put together card. And one thing I wanted to echo, another example of like PBC, another promotional company that we've done co-promotions with. We had Tim Zoo's last fight, obviously October 19th. Last year, again, Murta Lazilev back at the hotel. PBC event, Matchroom events, MVP events, Boxlab promotion events. It all goes down to Caribe Royale. I love what we've been able to do from a card perspective. I may be a little bit more biased than some of the cards that we've put together with respect to some of the fights that have gone down, but that's one that sticks out to me. But then again, I saw Kelly Pavlik and Sergio Martinez in Atlantic City when I was working for HBO. That was a great fight, man. Sergio Martinez. We used to joke all the time, man. If this guy learns how to block, he's going to be unstoppable. He did not learn how to block. But this is, I mean, I've been around the sport for a very long time. It's just been something fun to watch. And when you're walking around the hallways of HBO back in the day, and you run into Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant and the late Emmanuel Stewart, God rest his soul. It was always fun for me to like be a part of boxing, and I do impressions of all three of those guys. I've even prank called Larry's, So this has been something I've been around, and I just love the sport, man. It's a really fun sport. It's got its challenges, it's got its flaws. Yeah. We all know what they are. Boxing should work its way to fix them. They haven't, but the draw of a good fight card, like you mentioned, is what keeps us coming back.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned the fight card there. That was at the Barclays Center on March 1st. There you had Joanna Steas there against Julian J. Rock Williams. You had the Alberto Puello versus Sandor Martin. There, the co-feature bout there with Gary Antoine Russell and Jose Raul Valenzuela, and then capped it off with Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach Jr. There, as far as like the main pay-per-view card, and you had Derek Scooter Davis included on there. You had the thing there with Jared Hurd. That was part of that preliminary card too. So you definitely had a few action bouts that led into the pay-per-view card, and being at the Barclays Center, that scenery there was just absolutely crazy. And to have the finish that it did have, made it be exponentially more than some people probably would have expected going into that bout there for the main event. So it definitely stood out here, at least so far here for the year 2025.
Let me tell you something, and I'll end it on this. It was what made me laugh is, I was in the dressing rooms with Carlos De Leon Castro and Amari Jones for the Matchroom fight, and the Florida Athletic Commission, obviously walks in with the referees to give the instructions, and obviously their Spanish translator there. I think the first thing that was echoed was, all right, let's start with this. If you take a knee, we're counting you, okay? Like, I don't want to hear nobody. And I jokingly said, you got any examples of anything like that recently, or is that you just came up with that? Everyone started laughing, but it is true. Like, and again, I think it's the recency bias of but watching that card start to finish, and like you mentioned with Hurd fighting in the prelims, like it was names that in the sport. Titles changing hand, like it was really a good title. Another title should have changed hand. Like it was a really good fight card, I think, from top to bottom. But that's the one that stood out to me. But man, do we love this sport, right, James?
Oh yeah, most definitely. That's why you've been covering it as long as you have, and I've been covering it as long as I have, and I've not kind of like wavered in my love for the sport. So that's why I continue to do what I do for it. Like I was mentioning there with the card on March 1st, going into the one that happened at the Caribe Royale Resort. Like I've covered, about 4 fight cards within 6 weeks. So that tells you like how much traveling I've done, how much that I've talked with the number of fighters, promoters, managers, all that type of stuff there within that short time frame. And it does take a lot. I'll say that it does take a lot, but it ends up being enjoyable at the end of the day. Now got one other question here for you. Talking about the sport of boxing in general. Okay, who would you view as the top 3 fighters in the sport?
Well, I mean, obviously you got to throw divisions out the window. Usyk has been phenomenal to watch. I got to be honest. Look, I'm very biased. Like, I don't want to put a ranking on this. Like, if we put the rankings of, Tank and you put Usyk, and you put, I'm trying to think who's in the middleweight division of somebody that I would put in there. But I have seen some fighters up close and personal that I just there's something about them. There's something about Xander Zayas. There's something about Vasily Lomachenko. Like I'm telling you, I've seen both of these guys. You have in person. I've gotten to meet both of them. Like there's something about them. Like there's just an aura. There's a ring presence. There's somebody that understands the sport. Like this is let's be honest. This is a sport. People treat it like a Floyd Mayweather. When people used to complain about Floyd Mayweather, I would always tell them he's treating it like a sport. I remember talking to Victor Ortiz when I worked at ESPN when Ortiz was getting set to fight Floyd Mayweather, and Victor's a friend of mine. And I said, "Look, Vic, man, he treats this like a sport. The sport is to not get hit, stick and move. Like that's his prerogative. Other people treat it like boxing, right? Hand to hand combat." Right. I want to put on a show so that the judges see head movement that, I want to knock you out. Like there are different styles. But I think seeing Xander Zayas, and again, still a young pup, he's going to get a little bit better. Lomachenko, maybe he's on the downside, but somehow he's still in phenomenal shape, still atop the divisions, even though given his age, at least what a normal age for a boxer would be on that side of 30. Yeah. And like, I've seen both of those guys, and it's just I've left each time really impressed. Look, Tank did not impress me as much on March 1st. Forget the knee for a second. Forget the hair grease for a second. I just thought Lamont Roach really comboed him really well. And I thought Lamont Roach was planting before he could plant. Like there was something from a style perspective that somebody way smarter than me could explain it. But he had an answer for anything and there was one exchange in the 6th round where Tank caught him with a hard left. And I think right after that, Roach caught him with a 2-piece. Like it was very subtle. It was very quick. It was mentioned on the broadcast. But that is, again, that's why we come and watch this sport, because we want people that understand that this is a sport. There's a physicality to it, right? There's times when people do hold because they're tired. There's times when people hold as a strategy. It's annoying. And then there's times where people box, they move. And then there's people that have true knockout power. That Ryo versus, Pitbull fight that happened, months back. Ryo put on a clinic. Taller guy, Pitbull kept coming forward. Like that was a really good styles make fight clashes. But in terms of like who is at the top right now of the sport, I mean, you got to go with Usyk. You got to go with Inoue. I think Tank takes a little bit of a step down just because of what I saw from him fighting Lamont Roach. But he's still at the top of this. This May 2nd card is going to be really interesting to see what happens with Teofimo, what happens with Ryan Garcia, what happens with Devin Haney, if any of those guys actually takes that next step and could be, again, across divisions. We're throwing divisions out the window. If I had to shell out money to go watch somebody, I think it starts with Inoue first, mainly because I'd like to go to Japan, but then probably Usyk, and then Tank's got in that 3, and I'm trying to think of somebody that would be in that 4th range.
Well, the thing with Nayo, anyway, you might have a chance to see him. I mean, they got tickets available now there for the May 4th card. I think he's going up against Ramon Cardenas, defending those undisputed super bantamweight titles there. So we have that coming up here in a couple of months. That's part of that weekend where you're going to have, as you mentioned, with Ryan Garcia against Rolly Romero, Devin Haney there against Jose Ramirez, and Teofimo Lopez going up against Arnold Barboza. And then the next day, you're going to have featured there as Canelo Alvarez takes on William Skull. And then on the Sunday, you're going to have Nayo Inoue versus Ramon Cardenas headlining that card. So definitely have a whole series of events right there for the sport.
James, how can I forget Canelo? I mean, Tank slot down, Canelo up. And again, and this was the beauty of working at HBO Sports. I mean, this is when Canelo and Oscar, I have a photo of me, Canelo, Oscar, Bernard Hopkins. It's here at my house. And because this is HBO, this is 2007, 2008. Remember, Canelo, young pup, Saul, that means Mexican red hair, it's red hair for people that don't know the Canelo translation. And coming up in the sport, his ascension in the sport, just sitting next to him when he was a young kid, he's aged actually really well. And obviously he's gotten so much better as a boxer and some of the people that he's fought. But I think there's 3 guys that sit at the 3-4 guys that sit at the top. And then there's guys like, who would I pay to like watch? right?
Yeah.
Gary Russell, I would love to watch in person. I mentioned Lomachenko and Xander Sayas, but then there's guys that, like, who would I actually go pay to watch and see them? There's some guys across the pond in Great Britain that I would love to go see as well, that I'm hoping make it on U.S. soil here, not only in the heavyweight division, well, mostly in the heavyweight division, but like there's some really good fighters out there. And I think there's that next tier of like, who would you actually pay to watch versus who's at the top of the sport? And those are the who to pay to watches are those folks that, I think could actually take this sport forward, because that's where we kind of cross over into the mainstream and we get talked about a little bit more. And, we've left out the elephant in the room, which is what Jake Paul's doing at MVP and what they're doing over there. And whether or not, with the November event that they just had, because they have, Amanda Serrano is somebody that I love watching box. She has gotten me into female boxing more than anybody else, not only because we're both Puerto Rican, but I mean, having talked to her so many different times, like she's just a really good person. Her fights with Katie Taylor, I'm excited for that fight that's happening in the summer with them too. So like there's the pay to watches and then there's people that sit up top, but we got to grow this sport a lot more. And I think the pay to watches are doing their job.
Yeah, they are. Now you mentioned a thing there with Jake Paul as far as like, being involved with him in most valuable promotions, and you have those most valuable prospects cards, and it has those different cards going up on a consistent basis, and then also on top of that having the big events or having the fighters be involved in big events, like you said there with Amanda Serrano having her upcoming fight there against Katie Taylor on July 11th at the Madison Square Garden. That's going to be set up as an all women's pay-per-view event or type of thing there for that. So, and having Serrano signed for like a lifetime contract, basically. So he's definitely invested in Amanda Serrano, since that, back part of her career after, having multiple titles, multiple divisions, but not necessarily getting the recognition or notoriety. But then, being on here with Jake Paul now that has like, put her in a different stratosphere on that front.
Yeah, and look, we got to give Jake Paul a little bit of credit here. What he's done for women's boxing. I know they just signed Alicia Baumgardner, and so they're obviously investing in women's boxing, which is a kudos to them. And they have two of the bigger names that are in the women's boxing field. And I know Jake is trying to do his thing in the boxing ring, and obviously the fight with Canelo did fall through there. But the relationship that we have with MVP has been phenomenal, because it's been something where we put on these prospect series. Jake is really, and Nikisa, his business manager, are really invested in elevating the next wave of talent in the sport. And that aligns with our mission and our roster and the guys that we have. Obviously, we have some guys that have reached the pinnacles of the sport and have fought for world title shots. But, a large part of our roster are guys that are on the come up, these prospects that are 10, 12, 13 and 0. And we're trying to get them that next stage in their boxing career and get them that title shot. So Jake has been doing that with some of the stable fighters they have. Crystal Rosario is a good female fighter, and Jean Paul Rivera, another good young looking Puerto Rican fighter out there. So he's done some really good things with Most Valuable Promotions, and we love working with them at Boxlab. And obviously the Prospect Series, we just had one in Canada that just happened on March 7th. And I know you had Angel Barrientos on that program on one of your episodes here. So we love doing work with them, and we love the mission of advancing these prospects, along the food chain here.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is, developing these fighters here coming up in their professional careers, so that you're able to put them in those positions to have those fights to contend for, or be in those world title fights. That's the name of the game there. Being a part of the promotional company. And like you said there, with what's coming up here on April 18th at the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando, with that Night of Champions there to showcase those fighters within Boxlab Promotions, that you'll be able to say, hey, we have these fighters here. You'll be able to see them on the zone if you're able to watch on the zone, or go over to the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando. And so once you see them in action, then you'll say, hey, you know what, I saw them there on April 18th, and then I will look forward to seeing them in their next bout, or kind of like build them up to say, hey, we want to see this fighter against a highly ranked contender in their division, and put them in that particular position to move up the rankings.
That's it. That's the name of the game. That's what we want to do.
Yep, for sure. Now I know you've been involved in a lot of other things there within the sport and outside the sport. So what would you say is how about like a city or a country that you visited or you've been to, and it's like, you know what, wow, I love being here, from the time that I stepped out of the plane until I had to go back home?
So just in general, or for boxing, or you?
It could be in general.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm a little bit biased. I've been to Portugal a few times and have some family that live in the northwest part of Portugal and in Spain. And so getting off the plane in Portugal, a lot of fun there. I don't think they're as into boxing as some of their brethren that are in that area. They're into a little bit more with the foot and a soccer ball, but it was phenomenal. Food, everything's great. Obviously, my family lives in Puerto Rico, so I love, Puerto Rico and the island, and it's good going back home and just seeing family and friends and relaxing there. But if anybody's watching this, go out there, find out about going to Portugal, go to Lisbon or go to Porto, which is up on the northwest side. Trust me, you will have a great time, incredible views, the architecture and stuff like that. It's a really fun time out there in Portugal.
Yeah, that's something there. I guess I would have to, have a stamp on my passport card.
Right.
I had recently renewed my passport card, so that would be, I guess, on my bucket list to see if I could visit Lisbon there, one time, at least one time here within next couple years or something like that. Sometimes with a lot of traveling, I go to the islands or go places like for boxing, like the UK for boxing or something like that. So that would be, I guess, one thing on my bucket list to go over to Portugal and see what they have over there.
Yeah, I'll see if I can tell Amari have the next prospect series in Portugal. Let's see if he goes for it.
Hey, I mean, we could probably set something like that up. That could work. That could work. You know what I mean? With that being said, big thanks here for joining us here on the Midweek Report there, Brother Michael. And we're definitely going to see if we can reconnect here, as we get closer to that Night of Champions coming up for Boxlab Promotions on April 18th.
Appreciate it, James, having me on the program, man. Everybody listening and watching at the Boxing Source, man, you do great work. Like I said, I saw you at the Matchroom fight, front and center, capturing all of the stuff from the press conference. So you do phenomenal work. We'll see you April 18th. And for everybody out there, Ticketmaster.com, BoxLabPromotions.com, find out more about the event. Come see some of these fighters. Come out there and support. Come say hello. But go to Boxlab Promotions Instagram page, YouTube channel. Do me a favor, hit subscribe. Follow us everywhere. You're going to see more of my face with the content, but obviously you're going to see more of the boxers, and that's the important thing. And these boxers are going to put on a show on April 18th.
Yeah, no doubt. So we're definitely ready for that Night of Champions coming up on April 18th there at the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando. Definitely a number of fighters there from Boxlab Promotions that are going to be featured on that fight card. And we're going to, like you said, follow Boxlab Promotions. Y'all can follow Michael Leon also there on social media. So you'll be able to see, what's going on leading into that fight card coming up on April 18th.
Thanks for having me, James.
Yeah, no doubt there. All right, so that is Michael Leon there from Boxlab Promotions. Of course, content director there for that particular promotional company as they're getting prepared for that fight card there April 18th at the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando, Florida. As I mentioned there's going to be a number of fights that are going to be on that card. It's going to be stacked. I said it was about 10 fights that are scheduled on that card. You're going to have Kevin Brown that's going to be on that card, Gurgen Hovhannisyan, as we mentioned, Henry Cedeno on that card, Dainier Pero on that card, and Travis Ingram on the card, Carlos Lebron, Jobe Collazo with his pro debut. So it's definitely going to be stacked there on April 18th there in Orlando, Florida. All right. So that is our special guest that we had there, Michael Leon. And now we're going to, get into the portion here where we're going to, preview what's coming up here on Saturday. We got a pretty busy schedule on Saturday here coming up March 22nd, right? I mean, we got, of course, the unified super welterweight title bout that's coming up at the Michelob Ultra Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas, Nevada. Sebastian Fundora making that defense against Chordale Booker with the WBC and WBO super welterweight title on the line. This will be the first defense for Sebastian Fundora going up against Chordale Booker. Yeah, you all know about the backstory there with Sebastian Fundora. You had the whole thing that happened with Tim Tszyu last year, absolute bloodbath for Tim Tszyu. There he was able to become unified champion. They had the thing where he could have been in position to fight Terrence Crawford, but Terrence Crawford, went on, to face Israel Madrimov for the WBA version of the super welterweight titles, and then they tried to, revisit it. They got tabled, for a little bit, and then that's where, the whole thing with, Errol Spence Jr. potentially being the opponent for Sebastian Fundora, that fell through. So then, we just said, hey, you know what? We got to get Fundora in the ring. We got to get him to, defend these titles. And, at this particular point, it's going to be almost a full year since he had that bout against Tim Tszyu, defending these titles against Chordale Booker. So, with the lone loss that Sebastian Fundora has, of course, against Brian Mendoza, that has been the only time that he has fell on the loss column there. Now he's, going up against Chordale Booker. Booker is there with a record of 23 wins with just one loss there. That was to Ammo Williams, who we, were talking about here earlier, right? That was in Orlando this past weekend. And, now he had, a couple of fights in 2024, his last bout being on July 15th in Uncasville, Connecticut, there at the Mohegan Sun Casino. So he's had, a couple of bouts there over at Mohegan Sun, being a contender, winning a WBC, minor belt there last year. And that kind of like put him in the rankings, so to speak, within the 154-pound division. And so you have him going up against Sebastian Fundora. Of course, it's had a number of notable fights there within 154 pounds that we've seen over the years. So that is going to, be something there. Now, I was part of the thing there with the conference call that they had for this particular bout, where, I was able to talk with both Sebastian Fundora and Chordale Booker. And the thing with Fundora is that, as I mentioned, with this being his first defense of those unified titles, you will see that he is, among the top fighters there within the 154-pound division. And so he wants to, go in and show that he is or should be viewed as the top fighter at 154 pounds. As I said there, you had Bakr Murtazaliev with the IBF title, and currently it's Terrence Crawford with the WBA title, but we know that they're eventually setting up for Crawford to face Canelo Alvarez. They're in the super middleweight division, so that WBA belt will eventually be vacated. So with that being said, you're going to see Sebastian Fundora kind of like viewed as the top guy at 154 pounds at this particular moment. And so him going up against a Chordale Booker, is how he is going to utilize his height and reach here in this bout against Booker. You got Chordale Booker there at 5'9", measured at 5'9", with the reach at 70, in comparison to Sebastian Fundora, who is there at 6'5.5", with the reach at 80, and is there as a southpaw. But Chordale Booker is also a southpaw there, so you don't have to worry about switching stances or having your lead foot on the outside of your opponent's foot, just so that you have that option to get on the inside and get back, or step to the outside or step around the opponent's strong hand. That won't necessarily happen here, at least not on that often. And this bout that's going to happen headlining over there at Michelob Ultra Arena in Las Vegas, right? So with that, I mean, I kind of see. I'm going to see here if I could check the odds here for this particular bout. You know how I do it sometimes, right? We have this thing here with the what it is, the DraftKings here. I'm going to check out the thing with the DraftKings here real quick. See if I could get the odds there for DraftKings on this particular bout. You feel me? Because you're gonna have Sebastian Fundora there favored for this particular bout. But I'm trying to get these particulars here, and it got him as a significant favorite, minus 1,400. Minus 1,400. And Chordale Booker at plus 750 for the money line. Okay. And it said like for the money line, 93% of bets placed on Sebastian Fundora, 7% for Chordale Booker. They got it leaning towards Sebastian Fundora by KO at minus 200, plus 210 by decision. Chordale Booker by KO is at plus 1200, and Chordale Booker by decision is at plus 2000. Ooh, listen. I know that Sebastian Fundora has been, of course, the most notable fighter out here. Okay, but would y'all think that the past two fights that he's had may have been of significance to him going into this? I mean, think about this too. This has been here are the last three fights that Sebastian Fundora has had. Check the dates with this. Carlos Ocampo in October of 2022. Brian Mendoza in April of 2023. And Tim Tszyu in March of 2024. So 2022, 2023, 2024, and now this one. That's going to be 4 fights since 2022 for Sebastian Fundora. While, with Chordale Booker, he has had 1 fight in 2022, right? 4 fights in 2023 and 2 fights last year. So I'm thinking, him being in the ring, in and out of the ring, getting the fights, kind of like has him, a little bit sharper. Like I said, I mean, after his loss to Amber Williams, he's been there on the winning streak since then. Now, like I said, though, these odds are, very, very far. They're like far apart. But I don't know, man. I need to. I don't know. I think they had the thing there with the workout today. I had to check that out if they had the thing for the workout for this fight card, right? Yeah, they had it today, man. They had the media workouts there for this particular fight card. I wasn't able to necessarily catch it there live or whatnot, so I don't know. I might have to look and see what was going down here with these media workouts. And I know the press conference is tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. But then also I want to check out the weigh-in, which is going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. Listen, I know it's a stretch, but I'm gonna be looking. I'm gonna be looking to see what's going on with both of these fighters, because that Chordale Booker, going from the conference call that they had, that he's supremely motivated, that he's getting this opportunity to fight for and could win the world titles at 154 pounds. So listen, if there's something early, in this bout where maybe he gets the timing down of Sebastian Fundora, maybe goes for the gusto early. Hey, this is boxing, as we mentioned there, with Mike Leon here with as a guest. Hey, boxing is a theater of the unexpected. So could have something unexpected here for this bout, So I don't know. I have to, like I said, I have to check out this workout and then check out the weigh-in here, before I, fully commit, like I'm, signing on National Signing Day. I gotta wait for a little bit. I got, like I have like 3 or 4 hats before I, reach for the hat of where I'm going, for college or something like that. So I'm not fully committed on that bout quite yet. Okay. Now you also will have Jesus Ramos going up against Guido Emmanuel Schramm there, and yeah, that is the co-featured bout. Schramm is the replacement opponent there in this particular bout, right? And this is something, because you have Jesus Ramos Jr. that just recently had a bout on February 1st, right, against Jason Rosario, was able to get the stoppage victory over Jason Rosario at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, right? So now he's getting right back in the mix, here against Guido Schramm. He was originally scheduled to face Kevin Salgado, but Salgado was forced to withdraw from the fight. And man, I shouldn't even have to mention the odds for this on DraftKings when you have it's just absolutely insane. So it's just something where Jesus Ramos is able to get back in the ring, have something here to kind of like get him more into being acclimated in the 154-pound division. The fight that he had against Jason Rosario was a one-off, just to get him back in the ring because he hadn't been in the ring but that one time last year. So with him getting back in the ring against Jason Rosario on February 1st, now he's back into it here coming up on March 22nd. You may see Jesus Ramos, see if he can position himself up there at the 154-pound division to eventually, contend or fight for a world title. So that's why, they really pushed to, have him on as part of this fight card at Mandalay Bay, right? And then you're also going to have Elijah Garcia there that's going up against Terrell Gausha in this fight card as well. We had Elijah Garcia that was, climbing up the ranks there also within the middleweight division and whatnot. But, eventually had his loss to Kyron Davis last year at the MGM Grand Garden Arena there. So Kyron shut it down. Davis was able to outbox him and, get the decision win. Even though one judge had it like 98-92 in favor of Elijah Garcia. But, if you watch that fight, it was all Kyron Davis in that one. But he's getting right back at it now, going up against Terrell Gausha, of course, who's fought Carlos Adames there for the WBC title on that same card. So this is both of these fighters' first fights since that June 15th card that happened at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. So this is as they say, a crossroads fight, as a lot of times I mentioned. But you got Terrell Gausha there at 37 years old, measured there at 5'10" with a reach of 73 and a half. You got Elijah Garcia there at just 21 at 6 feet even with a reach of 71 there. And, there's something where Elijah Garcia, has, good amount of momentum here. He's definitely going to be motivated to, come off of that loss or respond from that loss to Kyron Davis there. So he's looking to have a really big performance here against Terrell Gausha. All right. So you got that bout also as part of it. So those are like, three main bouts that are going to be on through Amazon Prime. Okay. You're going to have a number of other fights there, including Robert Guerrero. Yep. Yeah, you do have another Robert Guerrero that is they're active in the lightweight division going up against Sean Armas. They're also going to have Joseph Brown there. Y'all look him up. Joseph Brown, I think he is there with Mayweather Promotions. That's going up against Ezekiel Duran. That should be, I think that's going to be on the YouTube portion there on this fight card. And a number of other undefeated fighters are going to be featured before you do have that Amazon Prime telecast that takes place. So you're going to have those three fights: Fundora Booker, Garcia Gausha, and Ramos versus Schramm on that PBC on Prime. Okay, so you have that there in Las Vegas. You also are going to have earlier in the day in Wales, South Wales of Australia, there George Kambosos Jr. going up against Jake Whaley. Willie is a replacement opponent because he had Daoud Yordan as the original opponent for George Kambosos Jr. for his bout that's going to be in his home country in Australia. George Kambosos Jr., of course, is former unified lightweight champion. Let me say this again. He is the former unified lightweight champion. Now having his bout here at super lightweight and going up against Jake Willie. Yes, he did lose twice to Devin Haney, and he did lose to Vasyl Lomachenko. Those are his 3 losses that he has on his record. Does have the win over Teofimo Lopez. So that is, basically the main story of George Kambosos' career, particularly recently. Now going up against Jake Willie, who has a record of 16-1. Okay, so he's stepping in there at 24 years old at a height at 5'7". So it's something there where I say that this is a feature fight for George Kambosos Jr. Okay, so with that being said, that is where Kambosos is seriously favored to get the win. They're like, I don't even think that they have this on the books. Hold up, yeah, I don't even see it on the books. So that should tell you right there what they really think about that matchup. But for me, the fight to watch is Sky Nicholson versus Tierra Brown. There for Sky Nicholson's WBC featherweight title. Sky Nicholson is there undefeated. Tierra Brown is there undefeated. Sky Nicholson has had a couple of fights there with a few top-rated featherweights in Diana Vargas and Raven Chapman before this bout against Tierra Brown. This will be the 3rd defense of that WBC featherweight title for Sky Nicholson. But Tierra Brown is there at 18-0. 11 of those wins by way of knockout. They're at 5'7". Of course, I saw her at the 2300 arena in January, where they had basically announced that you're going to have this fight taking place. And she has definitely been looking for this fight for some time now. Okay. And, with that being said, it makes for a great matchup that's coming up here. And, like I was talking about with Sky Nicholson, like she has had, the bout against Diana Vargas at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, which I was at. And then after that bout, they were talking about, who could be her next opponent at the time. It was either going to be Raven Chapman or Tierra Brown. And they couldn't really necessarily decide who was the mandatory challenger at the time. Maybe they had, co-mandatory challengers. So what they did was they said, you know what, we'll have Raven Chapman there as the opponent for Sky Nicholson at Kingdom Arena. So that happened last October. And now you have this bout against Tierra Brown. And like I said, this one here is the one to look out for, to watch out for, as Tierra Brown, as I said, has been waiting for this bout for a long time. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. Yes, I'm being kind of biased there. See if Tierra Brown can get the job done. Okay, so we'll see how that goes. You're also going to have Shanika Johnson versus Nina Hughes in this bout. That is a rematch. I think this is the one where I think that was the one where they had the announcer announce the wrong person, won the decision. I think this is the one for that. I think this is it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is the bout where the announcer has said that the winner by majority decision was Nina Hughes, and then they switched it and said it was Shanika Johnson. Not 100% sure on that, but I think that bout kind of stands out to me, because I think that's pretty much why they had that, right? Okay, so those are 3 main bouts on that card, and then also we have the Pro Box TV card on March 22nd. Headlining bout. Okay, all right, we're a few days away. We gotta have this happen. Okay, we gotta have this happen. All right, this is take 3. All right, Lester Martinez versus Joe Sean James. Okay. It was supposed to happen back in, what was it, November, over at the Pro Box Arena in Plant City. Day before, Les Martinez, got sick. Then they had it rescheduled for, I think it was January. Then got, same thing happened there. Now here we are, March 22nd. And think about it is like to have, a fighter like Joe Sean James kind of like be, held off a little bit, time after time. Kind of hurts because you have these camps, you prepare yourself in these camps for the actual fight, then you have to reset and then go through it again and then reset. And now he's gone through it this one more time, being out there in California, so he's definitely looking forward to this, as this is, two undefeated fighters. Lester Martinez, of course, is a highly ranked contender there in the super middleweight division that did have a win over a former, I think, IBO champion there at super middleweight in Carlos Gongora. I was at that fight in Washington, D.C. That was last June. Okay. So you have Lester Martinez that I mentioned as one of those super middleweights that could be in the mix, just below the Canelo Alvarez part there, with Canelo Alvarez just about having all the belts with the exception of the IBF. But you have like the Carlos Gongoras, you have the Christian and Billy's, you have the Edgar Belangas, you have the Diego Pachecos. You have those fighters, Jaime Munguia, Bruno Sirachi, that are right there, couple, steps below as a contender. And you have these guys that could fight each other to say, hey, this guy will be the next up to, contend for these belts. Lester Martinez could be mentioned as one of those guys in the super middleweight division, but first he would have to get past Joe Sean James, who has been noted as a guy that has derailed a few undefeated fighters. Okay. So this is something that Lester Martinez has to watch out for. Okay. So we have to see first Lester Martinez's overall condition going into this bout. Hopefully he's at 100% for this. And after that, if he's able to have a good performance against Joe Sean James to, stay undefeated, but that's going to be something there to watch out for, right? You're also going to have Vladimir Hernandez on this Pro Box card against Isaiah Lucero. Okay, of course, Vladimir Hernandez has been a notable fighter there on the Pro Box circuit. He also had the win over Lorenzo Truck Simpson on the overtime boxing card back in 2023. This is after fighting Jesus Ramos Jr. He also has a win over Julian J. Rock Williams. That was back in 2021. So, and also Guido Emmanuel Schramm. He busted him up. I remember that fight. Yeah, he busted up Guido Schramm. Yes, that same Guido Schramm that has stepped in to be the opponent there for Jesus Ramos Jr. in Las Vegas. So, but now he's going up against Isaiah Lucero here in this card on Pro Box. That's coming from Mexico. So it looks like that's going to be a good action bout. Therefore, as long as it lasts. So you do have that. You also have a guy, Kelvin Davis. They have him scheduled to be there against Jose Marufo. Now, he was supposed to be part of an earlier Pro Box card, but it had to be rescheduled. So now he was able to be fit into this March 22nd card. So definitely looking forward to that for him to be in action. Because after that, if he has quick work over Jose Marufo, we could see Kelvin Davis back in the ring within 3 months. I'll just say that he might be back in the ring within 3 months. And you're also going to have Jesse Magdaleno in the ring against Luis Correa. Jesse Magdaleno had the fights against Ray Ford and Brandon Figueroa in his last couple of bouts. Also, former WBO super bantamweight champion. Of course, had the decision win over Nonito Donaire. How would I say way back, but yeah, back in 2016. Yeah, so he's still active. He's still in the game. This will be about 15 years in the game when he goes up against Luis Correa here in this Pro Box TV bout coming up. So that is a lot of the stuff that we have there on the schedule. Okay, for March 22nd. So we got a lot of action for people to enjoy. You got fights on the zone. You got fights on Amazon Prime, not pay-per-view, but Amazon Prime, and you have Pro Box TV. Okay, so that tells you the schedule that we got coming up here for March 22nd. Hopefully, you'll be able to catch all of the action there on March 22nd. We'll stay on top of what happens here with these bouts. So continue to follow us on social media, particularly on Instagram and on Twitter there. So you'll be able to see what goes down with that. Also, I have a couple things planned here. Scheduled interview with Iceman John Scully on Friday. We'll have the podcast there for Sunday. That's coming up. So we'll be able to summarize, all the action that happened on February, March 22nd, right? And also, want to say that we're in the works of having a DMV network show, the DMV Boxing Network show. Our first one is going to be scheduled for next Friday. So look for that here on the Boxing Source next Friday at 8 p.m. Scheduled to have as a special guest Lamont Roach Sr., as he is going to talk to us about the No Excuse Promotions fight card April 12th at the Maryland Live. That's going to be on Pro Box TV. Okay, so that is what we have on the schedule here for the Boxing Source. So be sure to be on the lookout for all of that there, as we have, like I said, a lot of action and then even more fight cards that are scheduled to come up. So definitely be on the lookout for those updates there. All right. And also, like I said, check the social medias, as we'll have updates and news and notes of what will be going down in and around the sport of boxing there, as we try to get different things here from the sport on there. But also check the website, as it has down here, theboxingsource.net, fighting and photos. You've seen there that we had the fight card that was done by Matchroom at the Carib Royale Resort, of course, headlined by Austin Emma Williams versus Patrice Volney. So you'll be able to see those photos there, and other news and notes there within the sport of boxing. So that's what I got here for this particular episode of the Midweek Report. Thank everyone for checking this out. And like I said, we'll have more coming up here on Friday and on Sunday. And then we're going to, I guess it looks like we may have a more consistent type of schedule here on this particular YouTube channel, with something on, looks like Wednesdays. Could be Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. We could have a schedule there of Wednesday, Friday, Sunday of lives on the Boxing Source YouTube channel. So y'all be sure to check that out when you can. If you haven't done so already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate the support here on the Boxing Source YouTube channel. And that's it for me here tonight. I'm out. Peace.